Yesterday, Donald Trump soft-launched the idea of blaming Pete Hegseth for his illegal, illegitimate, and failed war. And now he is taking another step further, as leaks are coming out all over Congress and inside the White House, that Pete Hegseth no longer has the support of anyone in this administration or in the Republican Party. But it is not the only leak that is exposing how bad things are for Hegseth right now, because the man who can't keep himself away from the bottle also can't keep himself from leaking. And that is exactly what he just did about a psycho-secret plot that needs to be and has been uncovered, all the while Donald Trump is abandoning him. But it starts before we get to Pete's leaks, and the leaks about Trump abandoning him with how bad of a failure this war has been. Because it is why Donald Trump is maybe looking to shake things up at the Pentagon. This weekend, President Trump announced a no ifs, ands, or buts ultimatum that if Iran doesn't open up the shipping lanes in the Strait of Hormuz by Monday, Trump promised he would commit a capital W, capital C war crime. He said he would bomb Iran's civilian power plants, starting, quote, with the biggest one first. That was the ultimatum as of Saturday. He would do that today unless the Strait of Hormuz opened up. Today rolled around. And even though it's not even yet Taco Tuesday, Trump nevertheless backed down. He announced that he has delayed his planned war crime because there are now new talks, he says, happening between us and the Iranians. The Iranians say no, there aren't any new talks going on. Suspiciously, Trump won't say who these supposed talks are with, but he says they're definitely going great. And even though he says they're going great now, he's also sending 4,500 sailors and Marines over there. And the New York Times is reporting that he's considering calling up the 82nd Airborne as well. How well are the talks going, however? Well, Trump says these phantom supposed talks are going. Watch what he does, not what he says. And if you do that in this inexplicable war, it really seems like Donald Trump has started something he has absolutely no idea how to finish. And aside from everything else this war is doing, there is a very real prospect. It is going to crater not only our own economy, but the world economy, with Trump having no plan for that whatsoever. To put it lightly, we are having some drama at the moment. I mean, because of the president and his Republican Party's policies in Washington, 2 million Americans have lost their health insurance just since the beginning of the year. For millions more, healthcare has become dramatically more expensive, specifically because of Republican policies. The Federal Reserve just announced that there has been, quote, zero net job creation in the private sector over the past 6 months. 0 jobs created in 6 months in the private sector. One Trump-supporting Republican sheriff in California has just seized the ballots from the last statewide California election in his county. Not because the sheriff's office has anything to do with election administration in Riverside County or anywhere else, but because that sheriff and his deputies have guns and badges, and they say they heard something was wrong with the election. So, in Riverside County, California, that MAGA sheriff just seized 1,000 boxes of elections material, including more than 650,000 ballots. An absolute failure in every single regard. And just recently, within a couple of hours, we saw the White House start to soft that maybe Operation Epic Fury, Operation Epstein Fury, won't be able to achieve its strategic goals. Wow, what a shocker that is. Something that came together last minute from pushback within the White House, as Donald Trump believes what he was doing was an episode of television, isn't working out. I can't believe it. But what I can believe is that these people still do think that this is television, and they get to spin it however they want. Or at least Pete Hegseth is trying, and that is what leaked out. I want to get into this article, and also what is being said about Pete's shaky future in Donald Trump's administration. Leaked document, Iran war meets little brother. Info about the war is being censored with the help of private companies. A report from Ken Klippenstein. The Pentagon has quietly dictated to spy satellite companies what to say about the Iran war, exercising censorship over what the American public is allowed to know. Military sources tell me, Ken Klippenstein, that the level of secrecy surrounding the specifics of the Iran war is unprecedented, with barely any data being released about the level of bombing, the targets being attacked, likely war crimes, or the assessed effects. Now, the Trump administration is trying to further control what private companies say in a behind-the-scenes effort not been previously reported. As the American and Israeli bombing of Iran commenced on February 28th, the military promptly issued guidance to satellite operators of what language and terms to avoid when describing damage caused by Iran to American bases in the Middle East. According to a copy of the guidance leaked to Ken, the document states, "Avoid language that implies battle damage assessment, BDA, or operational conclusions." One slide produced by the US Space Force says it goes on to warn against using phrases like target destroyed, target eliminated, and structure rendered inoperable. The guidance includes the following examples of what to say and what not to say. Incorrect example: strike successfully destroyed the facility. Correct example: imagery shows the structure largely collapsed, with debris covering the building footprint. About 100 American companies are licensed by the US government to operate their own reconnaissance satellites, a $6 to $7 billion a year industry that serves military and commercial customers with everything from methane detection to bomb damage assessments. Most of the revenue of these companies comes from the military services in the federal government. The Big Four, Maxar Intelligence, Planet Labs, Black Sky Technology, Inspire Global, operate some 350 imaging and interception satellites. While the Pentagon guidance to the commercial companies is framed as an advisory, the companies comply because their contracting relationship with the government make them afraid to bite the hand that feeds them. As a result, private companies are increasingly becoming a controlled auxiliary little brother to the US intelligence machine. A trend I reported on last year. They are actively censoring what can be said about this war, because Pete Hegseth knows what is being said about this war. And worst of all for him, he knows what's being said about himself. Now I want to talk more about this reporting, but first, let's take a look at where Pete stands. There's zero confidence in Pete Hegseth. That's what my sources on the Hill, in the White House, and on K Street are telling me. In fact, one source put it this way: everyone regrets voting for him is an even bigger regret than RFK. That's really saying something. It's because how the war is playing out. I mean, it's expanding from the Gulf to Lebanon, and Pete's pugnacious style is just not reassuring during this time. They also want President Trump to step it up and sell the war. Some are even suggesting an Oval Office address. After all, he is asking them to pass a $200 billion supplemental bill. I wonder if everyone abandoning you is a good thing or a bad thing. If I had to guess everyone abandoning you, I'd probably say that that is a bad thing. And that is where Pete Hegseth stands right now. Everyone abandoning him. And no wonder Hegseth was uniquely unqualified for this position. But he is still not proven to be competent in any regard, and continues to embarrass himself on this campaign of emasculation, showing his insecurity every single day. His press conferences have been media criticism and fixation on who says what about him. He kicked reporters out of the Pentagon for taking unflattering photos of his hair. Pete Hegseth operates fully on insecurity. It's probably why him and Donald Trump get along so well. But that insecurity is now leading him to censor what can be said about a war we know very little about. What are its goals? What are its objectives? Why did it start? Well, we know that new reporting from Reuters today confirmed what was already known, that Bibi Netanyahu literally talked Donald Trump in a 2-hour phone call into going to war. He's just able to talk him into it because Donald Trump is both so dumb, so bloodthirsty, and also so compromised. How much money was given to Donald Trump? How much money was given to Donald Trump during the 2024 campaign by Israeli billionaires? Larry Ellison, Miriam Adlison, other PACs, AIPAC, DMFI. How much money did they spend on the Republicans who are in Donald Trump's Congress right now? Donald Trump is compromised. Would it be a shock to any of us, show hands, if we learned that Bibi Netanyahu also brought up some blackmail that the MSAD agent that was likely Jeffrey Epstein had on Donald Trump as a reason to get him into this war? Would anyone be surprised by that? Again, show hands. No one would be surprised. Yeah, that's what I thought. No one would be surprised. I certainly wouldn't. He was coaxed into this, and now he's going along with it because Israel runs our government, and that is a parasitic relationship that has to end, and this war has to end, and Pete Hegseth's time the Pentagon has to end. Remember when Republicans would claim that they were being censored because people who just didn't like what they say didn't want to be friends with them or engage with them? This is actual censorship. And if it's happening just with this war effort, imagine how much else Donald Trump, Pete Hegseth, and the Israeli government are censoring in American media. American media owned by Israeli billionaires. American media owned by the billionaires aligned with this administration. It all has to end. This war has to end. I think Graham Plattner said it best right here. Look, I fought in Iraq. I did 2 deployments to Fusion Romani. I in the infantry. I've been very close to the realities of wars. And that was a war that never should have happened, and that we find ourselves herein with another war that should not be happening, that is resulting in destruction and horror, all frankly on the taxpayer's dime. That is money that should be spent here in the United States, on schools, on hospitals, on infrastructure. Won't that leave troops in harm's way if you vote to defund this operation? No, because the troops should just not be in harm's way. End the war. Bring people home. Stop bombing. This is we started this thing. We can end it. It is I. No, and I'm sorry, man. I fought in Iraq 20,000 in 2005 and 2006, several years after I was told we won that war. And at that time, people were still pulling the whole, oh, well, how could we pull out? Wouldn't that be? Look, I was in the combat infantry. I could tell you that my life would be better if I had not had to fight in Romani in 2006. I do not think that we should fund a war that is illegal and not remotely in the interests of the American people. It's only in the interest of a political class that's trying to protect their hide. Whether it's Donald Trump trying to get us all to not pay attention to him being in the Epstein files. Or you think that's why he launched this war? I think it's a mix of that, and Benjamin Netanyahu finally found a president that was sucker enough to launch the war that he's been pushing for 30 years. But yeah, those are the reasons why this has to stop, and we are going to be covering that every single day. I can promise you on this show, if you want to support that. As always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. If you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. We are going to keep on calling them out. We are going to keep on fighting. We're not going to let him silence us. Pete Hegseth can't intimidate me. And until next time, y'all.